Liz Parrish is the founder and CEO of BioViva, a company committed to extending healthy lifespans using cell technologies. In 2015, Liz became the first person in the world to take dual gene therapies to treat aging. Liz is known as, quote, the woman who wants to genetically engineer you. She's a humanitarian, entrepreneur, and innovator, and a leading voice for regenerative medicine, and one of our favorite fellow revolutionaries. Please welcome Liz Parrish.
Hi, I hope you guys are excited. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, great. Well, we'll get right through this. So I'm really excited to be presenting with you today. I'm at home, but I'm in a different room than I've ever actually done a presentation in. So let me know if the sound is strange. Happy holidays to everyone. And I'm looking forward to a great new year of longevity and really fantastic scientific discoveries. And so let's get started. So can you see my video? Do you see this beautiful forest? Yeah, so I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I don't live in the redwood forest, but I love the forest. Right now, actually today we had a huge windstorm and the trees were really blowing, but it was really beautiful. I prefer the rain and the wet and the dark, deep forest. And what's really beautiful about this image here is that this is the sequoia forest. This is a real ecosystem. And in an ecosystem, we see the convergence of a bunch of different species coming together to support life. And I think that that's a very important part that we need to discuss in creating longevity, is that it really is creating an ecosystem. So I'm going to walk through what my company is doing to create an ecosystem for you to create a better, healthier, and happier life moving forward. So when we're looking at creating an ecosystem for humans, we're looking to do something similar as to what we see in the forest. We need a supportive system and a way to move forward. So the first thing that we're looking at is human genomics. And one really fantastic thing of looking at the sequoias, they live over 3,000 years. And that's definitely genomic technology. And we'll talk about that in the second point, which is comparative biology. We need to look at all of the species on the planet and see what their advantages are. See what type of technology they have that we might want to use as technology for ourselves. Then we are going to look at gene therapy, and gene therapy is obviously our specialty. We believe that modifying the genes is the way to create a successful way forward for humans. So I definitely love our species. I think that we are incredibly bright and bold, and I think that we need to continue on that trajectory to evolve into what we can become. And I think that that will be a self-evolution of genetically modifying ourselves to be impervious against disease, to be more empathetic, more intelligent, and better, stronger, and faster. And so when we look back at comparative biology and model organisms, we see that we can achieve this. The next thing we're going to talk about are the biomarkers of aging, a real sticking point of deciding how we determine if therapeutics are working. And then we're going to talk about longevity counseling, which is kind of following it up and helping the average consumer of products understand what these products actually mean, what their genome actually means, and what's happening inside them right now. I want to get you so excited about your genes that in the future you are knowingly picking and choosing the genes that you want to be the future human that you would like to be and live how you would like to live. So let's go to the next slide. So human longevity genomics. So in 2018, BioViva launched a bioinformatics program that is being developed at this time. And what it's looking at is the genes associated with aging and longevity. So this really overwhelming protein to protein map is essentially showing us that there are over 200 genes associated with biological aging. And there's about 59 right now associated with longevity. And so we want to look at what sort of benefits that those can give you and have a multi-omic system that our patients and people who partake in our protocols and technology that we're offering will actually be able to interact with this system that will show them the benefits that they may have and how we might be able to benefit you in the future. So now let's go to this beautiful video. I hope the video is playing for you. This was the first 3D image ever created of the enzyme telomerase. And telomerase has a special place in my heart because when I took 2 gene therapies to combat biological aging, telomerase was one of the enzymes that's created by one of the genes that I took. So telomerase repairs telomeres, and so those are the caps at the ends of your chromosomes, and they're associated with biological aging. They get shorter as we age, so the hypothesis would be that keeping them longer would keep your cells younger and healthier, and that actually works in cell culture, and it's worked in animal models. They affect mitochondrial health. So your mitochondria are the powerhouses of your cells, and we want to keep them productive, strong, and keep them from getting damaged. They're tracked down through time from our ancestors, and they're quite amazing powerhouses. They're actually little bacterias, and that's one of the reasons you get inflammation is when you get injured, your body then is exposed to seeing the mitochondria and thinks it's a bacterial infection. That's kind of a cool factoid that someone gave me. So it also, in order to improve genomic instability and protect you against things like cancer, we like the idea of telomerase because it protects the chromosome from damage from your environment. So we're hoping that the prevention of cancer might come from this type of gene therapy given early on in life before you get a lot of genomic instability. So I think that we've probably talked about this before, but before I took the gene therapy, you can see here is my chart, my graph, and my telomere length before I took the gene therapy was 6.7 kilobases. And after the gene therapy, about a year after, it was 7.3. And then just this last year in 2018, we had the telomeres looked at again and measured from the same company, same lab, same procedure, and they were at 8.12. So we're really excited about that, and I'll talk a little bit later how we're actually helping patients now with lifting their telomeres. Yay! Okay, so my second favorite gene is follistatin. And follistatin pumps you up. So I have increased muscle mass, and that's just from the gene therapy. That's not from working out, although I better get back to my workouts. It's a gene therapy that creates a protein that blocks something called myostatin, and myostatin inhibits your muscle growth. So in patients who have muscle wasting, whether that be because like this boy in this video who has muscular dystrophy, or whether it's from aging, we want to be able to treat you and help get you active and keep you from dying of frailty-associated disorders. So if you look here, we'll see this boy, and this is him before therapy. And I know it's very touching, and he's trying to climb stairs and he can't. And this is the boy several weeks after taking a follistatin gene therapy. Now, this was actually given by Pfizer. This wasn't given by our company, but we're using the same gene and the same delivery method. And so we're hoping to pump up an aging population and help those who can't afford these very expensive therapies coming through the regulatory service. So the follistatin itself repairs muscle stem cells. It improves the number of myofibers, increasing the density of your muscle mass. And it, of course, reduces and prevents sarcopenia, which is frailty over time. Here are some of the images from my gene therapy. So Actually, I just got new images done in Newport Beach a few weeks ago, and I'm waiting to get them uploaded. But you can see here, I know it's hard to tell, but you can see the before and after, and there was decrease in white fat, and there was increase in muscle mass. And the strangest thing about this is that when I had the pre-scans done before the gene therapies, I was an avid runner. I ran about 30 miles a week, and I lifted weights. And after, I didn't. I was pretty much getting on plane to plane, and at some point my doctor said, why don't we just see what happens, without you intervening, what would happen for the average person that doesn't get a lot of exercise because you're so busy. And we saw increased muscle mass and decreased white fat. So that was pretty great. So that's pretty promising. Of course, we want you to be healthy and do the best that you can on the ground with your health, but you can see the potential benefit for people who might be handicapped, who might be sedentary and overweight and obese, and this gene therapy might give them the ability to grow some muscle mass and reduce some of that white fat before they get to what might be dangerous exercise too soon. Here we will bow down to the goddess Clotho. This is becoming one of my new favorites, and I definitely want to do this gene therapy. This is Clotho, and Clotho has been associated with improved brain function. It assists in anti-aging processes in the body. It suppresses growth pathways, so what that means is that may be a great protection against cancer. It has regenerative benefits to cells. It makes cells younger. And what we're most excited about right now is chronic kidney disease. So we are trying to create pathways that are inexpensive to get patients access to this technology. And we are creating the first in the world therapies, under $60,000 to treat chronic kidney failure. So Clotho is the only gene known to actually regenerate kidneys in animals, and this could be a real success for patients on dialysis. So we're really excited about the goddess Clotho, who spins the web of life. The fourth one that we're offering now is PgC1 Alpha, and this is actually a very interesting gene therapy. It increases the energy function of the mitochondria, and so it improves the mitochondria quality and quantity. It reduces white fat, so this may be the ultimate treatment for type 2 diabetes. It maintains, healthy cell growth, and it protects against liver damage, which is actually quite extraordinary because this is something that we will have bouts with. Certain organs definitely need to be protected and regenerated over time. It's not just your skin. A lot of people think that anti-aging is aesthetics, but it's not. It's really survival. This extended life span in animal models, mice, as about 30%. So it was actually about as successful as telomerase induction in mice. So that's a very powerful tool. Keeping the mitochondria healthy independently is a very important place to start in most aging bodies, and so we're very excited about that technology. So when we look at comparative biology, what are we really looking at? We're looking at what I call the phylogenetic grocery store. We're looking at every organism on the planet that may have a benefit to human health and lifespan. So in 2016, a company came forward to try the first genes from light-sensing algae in human eyes for congenital blindness. And that's pretty exciting to us. We always thought we'd be probably the first company that would span out into this area. When you look at other creatures, I want you to think of their abilities as being technology. And so whether that's something very interesting, like seeing in billions of colors instead of millions of colors, or whether that's being able to bioluminescently changing your skin tone, it gets very exciting. But right now we're looking at organisms who have the ability to delay biological aging. So the last gene we looked at, PgC1 Alpha, is a gene that bats have. Their closest relative is a mouse that lives about 2 to 3 years, and a bat lives for 41 years. We used to think that increased metabolism meant a shorter lifespan, but actually, in fact, it doesn't. And PgC1 alpha is one of those really defining genes. Other creatures that we might look at on this chart are things like the naked mole rat, who has several genes that actually help protect it against ever getting cancer and many of the age-related disorders. And also the Mexican salamander, the axolotl, who can regenerate not only its full limb, but it can regenerate its spine and parts of its brain if they're removed. So you may think, well, I don't want to look like a Mexican salamander, but remember, these are just genes. We are made up of all of the same ingredients, just in a different combination. So you certainly don't have to look like a Mexican salamander to have the benefits of its regeneration. Okay, so gene therapy. What is gene therapy? I know our time is limited. I'm hoping that this video will play for you. Right now, when we deliver gene therapy, we use AAV, and AAV is a fantastic little targeted capsid that helps to get genes into cells. It's been in 140 clinical trials. It's considered very safe. It has very few side effects. If you have any side effects, unfortunately, you just don't get to take the gene therapy itself. It really is been used in a myriad of different disease types, and it's very successful. This is it actually connecting with the membrane of the cell. Here it injects the gene. So we put into these viral vectors little gene snippets that we want your body to then produce the protein of. And here what you see is polymerase going through and creating a snippet of RNA that will go on to create the target protein that we want you to upregulate that changes you. Vastly, you can see we look at genes that cause regeneration, so they're good for the whole population. But many of these gene therapies have been specifically tried in monogenic disorders that only affect a small percentage of the population, but with great success. So through regulation, there's already 3 past gene therapies that are one treatment for a cure, and we hope to use that power to be able to affect biological aging. So right now, what we're doing through our partner, Integrative Health Systems. Integrative Health Systems is an exclusive partner to BioViva, and it's the first company in the world open to consensual use of gene therapy. So I'm really happy with that. So the doctor is in, and we'll see you now. And actually, we have a multitude of doctors. We have doctors who will just do basic preliminary work and post work. And we have 5 doctors who are exclusive to Integrative Health Systems that will see you all the way through the process and travel with you to get your gene therapies. So right now, we're working on Alzheimer's telomerase trial. This is pretty fantastic because right now we have gotten a grant from Max Life Foundation that will help us treat the next 8 patients, I think, in a string of 10 that we're seeking now for Alzheimer's at only the cost of travel and pre and post work. So it is a substantial savings. It's over $50,000 treatment for free for patients who are. So if you have some family members who have Alzheimer's, be sure to contact our partner, Integrative Health Systems, because we'd love to help you, and we'd love to help run the analysis of how well this gene therapy is working in patients. We do already have it in some patients, and we're waiting on that data. That'll take about 18 months to finish. We're also doing the Myostatin muscle regeneration, and so that is a fantastic therapy for aging population. We're doing the Clotho for chronic kidney disease. And then, of course, we're always offering full body telomerase rejuvenation and Clotho for those who are just like me and can't wait. Okay, So this is Integrative Health Systems. This is what it looks like. It's like a really easy process, 3 steps to a healthier you. You just go on, you apply, you put in your health data, you schedule an appointment with a medical doctor. You'll be talking with a US doctor. If you choose and elect to take a therapy and they believe that you're a good candidate, you will travel to see them in the US, and then you will proceed to do all of your pre-work for the gene therapies itself. And BioViva actually will be with you every step of the way. We are there to analyze the bioinformatic data and ensure that the therapies are working, or if they're not working, we need to know that. We are not committed to any of our hypotheses. We're not in love with any of these treatments. If they don't work, we toss them. We don't intend to do anything that will hurt you, though. That I should be really clear about that. There's nobody who wants to take a risk that will affect you in an unhealthy way. So again, Max Life Foundation is funding a trial with BioViva to use hTERT to the brain to rejuvenate the microglia and see if we can halt or reverse Alzheimer's disease. This video is very interesting. This is a normal brain compared to a brain with Alzheimer's, and you can see the definition that the Alzheimer's brain lacks. Certainly aging is a process that goes entirely through our bodies. It's not just skin deep. All of our bodies are being affected by the biological process of aging. Our big announcement this year was that we're going bigger and better. So BioViva partnered with Rutgers University. We just came out with this in November, and we are going to create the first vaccine against this was a long embattled contract that took us 6 months to ensure that we would own the patenting rights for everything that happened through it, and we applied for the patent already. Essentially what we're doing is we're creating a large delivery method that could, well, if we put things into perspective, AAV can deliver a little bit of each one of those genes that I showed you. Our viral vector will be able to deliver all of them at one time. So this is exciting. Those are not our only targets. We already have specific targets for this therapy, but we believe that this therapy will grow and change over time with new developments in technology. We'll be able to add technology to it and subtract technology to it. It may be full of 3 mRNAs and a couple DNA strands, just meaning that some of the therapeutic benefits might be short-term acting in your body, others long-term acting. And we're also able to design it so that it goes after things like senescent cells. And that's a type you've probably been hearing about in Senolytics that we haven't been talking much about because the gene therapies aren't quite there yet. So this gives us the ability to create a multitude of factors that upregulate and downregulate biological aging with the goal of regeneration and keeping you, staving off the diseases of aging for you as long as possible. So this is really, really exciting. So again, the benefits of this delivery is many genes at one time, no genomic integration. We don't want to do anything that can cause cancer, so we keep an episome type delivery. We can target multiple tissues. It can be delivered in multiple ways. And in the next year or so, you're going to be hearing about our proprietary way of delivering it for a specific disease. And we hope it's successful, but you have to hold on to learn more about that. It has a high tissue uptake, and the hope of that is that we'll have a low dose requirement, and that will cut the cost of gene therapy significantly. And then it has a negligible immune response. Sorry about my speech impediment. Some words are tough for me to say. And that means that it's been considered safe in human studies, and it is a delivery method that has been used in human studies before, so we do have some great evidence that it should be a success, but it'll take a few years. So the biomarkers of aging, I'm going to go over this really quick because I've gone over this a lot of times and you've probably heard it from a lot of people. We look at certain targets of aging. So when we talk about disease, I don't really think of dementia and heart disease and cancer and these things specifically. I think of the hallmarks of aging. I think of what is actually driving the symptoms, those diseases that we're told are diseases, and they are, but those are symptoms of what's actually happening at the cellular level. So all of our genetic targets are to reverse the damage that are happening in these areas. So those would be things like stem cell exhaustion, inter and extracellular communication issues, genomic instability, telomere attrition, cellular senescence, those old cells that don't divide and send off a lot of inflammatory markers, mitochondrial dysfunction, and loss of proteostasis. Glycation is one that's not on here, and loss of proteostasis can be cut into those ways. So why do we look at these and how do they affect the disease state? Let's just look really quick at this diagram, and you'll see that it's the hallmarks of aging that are actually driving these diseases. So these 4 diseases on here, right on your screen, cardiovascular disease, dementia, cancer, and diabetes, will kill 80% of the population. And if you eradicate just one of them, you only extend human lifespan by a very short period of time, because unfortunately, as we age, we have a multitude of what are symptoms, but diseases that run in tangent. They're running in parallel. So if you don't get cancer, you might extend your lifespan by 1 or 2 years. If you don't get heart disease, you also do similarly. But if we're able to knock out all 4 of these diseases, you live substantially longer and better. And so, of course, that would be our goal. So if we look at the what's inside these circles are the hallmarks of aging, and these are the things that you will see across the board. And you can see things like mitochondrial dysfunction and proteostasis loss are pretty much across all of these diseases that we die of, and you can see other correlations as well. So it's really these hallmarks of aging that are killing us, and really I think in the future what we'll call disease. So we'll say, well, we treated your mitochondrial dysfunction, but you still have glycation, and glycation will be the treatment that you will be seeking, is something that reverses glycation. So as we move forward, I'm hoping that we can expand our terminology, expand our minds. We're going to have to think in new ways, and certainly we don't want to be talking about cancer and dementia and heart disease when we've all but hopefully eradicated them. So how do we enable longevity? We're working on our bioinformatics program. It's a multi-omic platform. It's a platform that's looking at essentially data in patients from a wide breadth of areas. And so that would go anything from the microbiome to your genome, to your envirome, to your physiome. And I have an incredible team that's putting this together. And as you probably are aware, many of these data points are still not actually well understood in all patients. Most people haven't had all these data points run. I encourage you to do it. I encourage you to join our platform, because we are actively looking for the cure for biological aging. And that is succinctly what we're using your data to do. And our products that we launched this year to help get people excited about their bodies and some specific knowledge about who you are genetically is Map My Health, which actually looks at over 200 disease risks. It's the most inclusive SNP testing on the planet. It looks at the most disease states, your metabolome, your drug interactions, medication. Really fantastic. Then we did Map My Health, or Map My Fitness. We just talked about Map My Health. And it is looking at your prowess, your sports prowess, which is really a good fun thing to do, especially now that we have the ability to modify your genes to change that prowess. It probably isn't so hard to take a look anymore. My DNA age, it actually is looking at the epigenetics of your cells and seeing about what age you are. And that's a pretty important tool. And we're actually using that test before and after in patients who take gene therapy. And then the full genome kit actually looks at your entire genome. Now, these are for, you do pay for these. You don't have to share the data. It's not like free services where they're going to take your data without asking you. If you share your data with us, of course, it does help us find a cure for aging. Also, part of the cost of all of these therapies, but something that you can get all on your own, is genomic counseling. And what's great about genomic counseling is whether you've done 23andMe, Ancestry.com, our kits, or anyone else's, you might be sitting there thinking, what the hell does this mean? And we want to help you with professional genetic counselors actually understand what your readout actually means and what your risks actually are. So we don't want you going and getting a mastectomy because maybe you have a higher risk gene without a family history of breast cancer, or a variation of a myriad of things that could happen that might cause you anxiety. Being able to talk to a specialist is really fantastic, and our genomic counseling, even when on its own, is fantastically reasonable in price and 100% worth it. People are loving that more than anything. So that is actually about it for me. I just have spent the last 3 years of my life trying to create, again, an ecosystem for you where we have the things that you need, educational tools, diagnostic tools, interface with professionals, and of course, the most importantly, the first consensual use of the first therapies that are here on the front line to stop biological aging and give us a chance in hell of making it to the cure. So thank you a lot.
Hey, Liz.
Hey. It's funny because I'm like just here in this relaxing, dark atmosphere room, and I probably didn't have half the energy I usually have. Sorry, I'm trying.
No, it's great. We love hearing from you.
Well.
Yeah. So we have time for a few questions. Do you have time for a few answers to a few questions? Can she hear me? Do you have time for a little Q&A? Yeah. Okay. Super. So I wanted to ask you a question. First of all, congratulations on all the progress.
Thanks.
It's really exciting. Yeah. It's really exciting to see where you are now, where BioViva is now compared to where it was, I think, when we met about 3 years ago. So there's a lot of... But specifically, I was interested, so Rutgers is the State University of New Jersey. So
that's right.
That's a very mainstream university, and I think that makes the partnership even more impressive, because it looks like you're making real inroads in bringing the conversation about curing aging to places like Rutgers. So can you comment on that, on what you see in that and the significance of that?
Yeah, it was, so when we first started to communicate with them, our chief scientific officer, Anka, actually got her PhD at Rutgers. She had worked under Hua Zhu, who is the principal investigator of the technology that we're developing. And so she had a strong understanding of the benefits of going this specific route, and actually suggested that we take a look at this new delivery method and how much that could really be a game changer for the future. And so we initially contacted Rutgers. Then you have to talk to a legal team, and I think that they seemed well, they were really committed to a very traditional contract that we didn't want to do, because we think that this is really important. And, you know, I always love the song, The Man Who Sold the World. I don't want to be that person. I want to make sure that this technology gets into the hands of people and that there are no bounds and restrictions on it due to patent incompatibility in sharing that information. And so I finally was able to talk to someone at Rutgers almost 6 months in and tell them the imperative and really my vision and how important that I thought that that was for the world, more than fighting over a patent battle. And she agreed with me. And so, she made sure that we got the contract that we needed, and we made sure that we could pay for it. And she really, I think that Rutgers really understands the mission, and they really understand the imperative for healthy people, and that this technology needs no bounds.
Beautiful, fantastic.
Hi, Liz. Nice guitar back there. Seafoam green strap.
That's my daughter's.
All right.
She has guitars, ukuleles, piano.
I was wondering you were rocking out here when we're done with the presentation. All right, here's my question. You mentioned some pricing about the Alzheimer's treatment. I'm wondering if you might give us some pricing about the other three and maybe progress in pricing down the line, et cetera.
Yeah. So when we first launched, a lot of people got a hold of integrative health systems and basically talked to them about the big therapies, like how much would it be to get Liz's therapy? And it's actually quite cost prohibitive. It's a one-off therapeutic. When you're getting a gene therapy made for one person, it's really quite expensive. It could run you almost to $1 million. You have to get a very purified product for humans. And so what I did is I said, okay, we really have to change this, and we have to look at organ specific. We need therapies that people can afford, that affect the conditions that they have now, because if we can't regenerate a kidney, if we can't regenerate a brain, we're kind of out of luck. So we worked really closely with them to design these therapies with safe lower doses to start, and then modify and amplify them up from there for patients who are in need now. And this is when we really hit what will be the future of medicine. So right now, the cheapest gene therapy on the market is over $650,000 that's through regulation. Right now, we are looking at organ-specific treatments being around $75,000 and under. And some of them are massively under, depending on the dose that the doctor decides to go for the treatment. And I don't think that any of the drug companies would be able to beat that for the next 50 years. They're not built on the model to beat that. We will always be built on the model to beat whatever they're doing, so that patients can actually access this type of technology. And when we get it into that realm, so if you want to project out, so you say, okay, so a one-time treatment at a large dose for a whole body is really quite cost prohibitive. But if we treated 100 people with that same dose, it is under $250,000. If we treated, and this is a whole body, this isn't organ specific, because we already talked about how inexpensive we're trying to get those technologies. But if you treated 1,000 people today with that whole body treatment, now you have a price range that most people in industrialized countries can't afford. They can actually reach it. And it's probably less than their copay to treat some of the diseases that they're treating right now. So, and then if you treat 10,000 people and 1 million people, you can see where I'm going with this. By scale, we can make this affordable. By scale, we can make it affordable in the next few years, but we have to do it by scale. So as long as we just have 1 or 2 patients coming in, it's going to be very expensive. But those patients are spearheading the future. Those are the real pioneers. My heart goes out to them because they are actually spearheading the future for you through their data.
So your telomeres continued to grow a year after, into the second year after your treatment, right? Is that correct?
That was actually into the third year.
Third year.
But what we don't know is if that happened immediately after the first 18 months or if that continues to happen. So that makes it so essentially I definitely need to follow the telomere testing. We use the same lab again and the same procedure to see what happens over time. One thing we were happy to see is that they consistently get longer rather than getting any of these error message or anything in between. The only test we've done, it's consistently longer. But we don't know what time exactly that happened in. And with a multitude of patients and with a multitude more of my own data, we will find out what that actually meant and when that lengthening stopped or if it will stop.
Right, because potentially it could mean, obviously it's a tiny sample size, but it could mean that you've permanently reversed that, right? That would be one. Or is that right?
And then what we want to do is, that's why we're looking at the new vector. We want to deliver the gene therapy then that can target all the cells. So, when we do a whole body gene therapy, we might only be targeting 10% of the cells up to 40% of the cells. And 40% of the cells would be beneficial. You would probably look younger over years. You wouldn't maybe look younger right away, but over the years, you would progressively look better and better with regeneration and the stem cell replacement. But at 10%, we definitely want to make sure that we're doing better than that. So delivery is key and essential. And AAV is a very, very good delivery method right now. We just really want to do better. So the reason I bring that up is because when they look at my cells, they're only measuring the T lymphocytes because that's what the companies measure. They measure T lymphocytes. We don't have measurement on any other cell type in my body. Because that's just the testing has never been standardized to do any other cell in the body. So we look at the same cells over the years and they are progressively longer. But you'll see my last measurement was only a little bit longer than the one before that. So they're not getting like exponentially long, exponentially fast. And, as we look at many people with HTER delivery, we might move it to an RNA type therapy that's very temporary, depending on the response. But I like the idea of the continued upregulation of a gene as long as possible because the model organisms that we see that benefited from it actually had it turned up long term, their lifetime.
Hi, Liz. That was a great presentation. Love seeing exactly where you're at and what's happening. And the last time that we spoke, you were a little frustrated and you wanted to see some progress. And it sounds like that this is really starting to take off. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I was going to ask. That was part of the question that I wanted to ask was in regards to the myostatin. If you were to go ahead and adjust that one gene, would you wind up eventually looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger? Oops.
Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out, and then my phone rang. That your microphone cut out. You said if you were to upregulate that one gene, and then you had a question.
Would you eventually that myostatin basically would still be blocked for a extended period of time to where you start looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No, so when we do the follistatin gene therapy, we're not permanently blocking myostatin. So there is a rare mutation that you see, but you certainly see it in a certain strain of cows because they raise them to be myostatin knockouts, and they are huge. But follistatin doesn't block all of myostatin. So we're not editing your myostatin gene. So you still have a regulator. In associated animal studies in primates, the increased muscle mass was associated with the dose. And so we also, based on the muscular dystrophy studies, look at dosages that would create human improvement, but they unlike telomerase, don't continue to do a process. They just do the baseline of the injection status. And so the increased muscle mass that I've had, I've had the same amount of increased muscle mass since about 8 months after the gene therapy. So it will not continue to build on itself. It's actually, telomerase is a gene that creates an enzyme that just is in the cell, and when it goes outside the cell, it's destroyed. But follistatin is actually shared in the body, and it goes through a purification process. So you never block too much myostatin. You actually wouldn't want to do that. So
Yeah. So
we wouldn't want to remove a gene that actually has a basic process, because you would become massively muscular, and it might actually affect your lifestyle and the things that you do.
right. And so that, in conjunction with that, there are peptides that actually will block the myostatin. How would this be comparison to doing the gene therapy and the differences?
Right. So when you look at the gene therapy actually seems quite expensive, especially if you want to get a big muscle production out of it. But the great thing about the gene therapy is it's a one-time therapy. So it's not something you need to do again and again. And if you were to do the follistatin peptides, it would be cost prohibitive to inject them. Their half-life is massively short. You would be putting thousands and thousands of dollars in your body in a year, and you would pay for the gene therapy in short order. So the benefit of the gene therapy is just that. Plus, it doesn't come with any of the risks associated with some of the other steroids that people take to increase muscle mass. There's no, that we know, heart enlarging problems. There isn't a short lifespan associated. As a matter of fact, the animals that were transfected with follistatin actually live longer than their peer group.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Les. You look so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Gosh, I wish I could see you. I want to be there. I want to give everybody a big hug.
You look great. My question is, did you have any different feelings, experiences in your own person? I know you have the muscle and you must feel great to have muscle without working out, even though I love working out, the emotional or sensation of that. But do you have any sensations, physical sensations that you feel or emotions that you feel that you notice that are different?
I always say that that's a really slippery slope of conversation because, when I did my first presentation with you guys, it was the first presentation of the company. Bill Andrews contacted me and he said, I know you're launching that company and I've got a really supportive group for you to go and give your first talk. And my first talk was me not being able to say it, but knowing that I was about to take a couple of gene therapies. And I was pretty excited about that, and I've been excited about that since, because I really do feel like it is a game changer in how we treat disease in general. Now, as we heard before, I've gone through some pretty down times because I had a couple of years there where I went around the world asking if we could do these therapies and getting a, boy, we really love what you do, and we don't know how to help you response. I would say the emotions go up and down, and I don't know how much they're associated with the gene therapies, but I certainly feel fantastic today. I felt physically really well for all of the years since I've taken the therapies, and we continue to do studies and do MRI imaging and things like that to ensure that there hasn't been any non-benefits, any detriments to taking the therapies. There doesn't seem to be. The biomarkers are good. My mood is good. I feel great, but of course I feel better when we're actually getting things done. So mood and emotion and things like that are, I don't think that humans are supposed to be content. I don't think that we're supposed to be happy all the time. We don't push for change if we are. Right. But I would say that I'm emotionally as stable as anyone I know. I just I'm not sure that the gene therapy has affected my emotional state or not, but certainly feeling more physically capable and stronger and things like that definitely have a positive attribute. But when we look at what changed and things like that, we always talk about biomarkers rather than mood and things like that, because there's a lot of things that could affect that. And you guys are a great example of having a great, extraordinary view of the future and a positive attitude. And you know how much that can affect your health in a positive way. Just, it's really amazing.
Thank you, Liz. This is Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Hi. Bernie and I are so grateful for you taking the time to do this and so excited in what you're doing. And of course, with you all the way. One question I had, you've covered so much, it's really great, is on the vaccine. I think you said it'd be like a couple years before 2, 3 is whatever. Is that correct, that you thought you might be able to have that developed? And if so, will that be able to treat basically any age? Will it be as effective at any age to stop aging? Is that, or what is the whole basis of that?
Yeah, let me tell you. So the timeline for the vaccine is going to be a bit longer than anyone would really hope for. It's going to be 2 solid years of preliminary data, and that means it has to go through all the basic safety and toxicology data that we need in order to move forward. And Integrative Health Systems is going to be integral to us to understand what set of genes that we actually want to use in that, as well as the meta-analysis from a lot of different studies that are going on, including Senolytics and various other research that we're looking at. So when you're working in a mainstream sort of way in the US, we have to, and we want to. Everything that we're doing already with humans already has this preliminary meta-analysis of data, and we don't think that it's too soon to use that type of technology because of that. So we do have to produce a lot of basic data with this. So it will take a few years. It's going to take a couple of years, a little bit less now, just to be in the preliminary toxicology and delivery data. And then it will go into the first, probably the 3rd year, we'll go into the first delivery of a multi-set of genes in cells in an organism, and with the intent and desire to get it into humans as soon as possible. So that's what I can say about that right now.
And so theoretically then it will be able to, when you are able to actually administer it, it can actually be able to stop aging at any age, fundamentally? Anybody could
Yeah.
be? Yes.
So the whole idea of the gene therapy will to have some targeted effects against cells that we don't want in the body, but to have several regenerative effects. And how we are designing the vaccine right now is a myriad of upregulation of genes that produce regeneration in the body. So yeah, it's not about halting it for young people. It's about upregulating regeneration and creating, the new 2.0 human who can regenerate at a rate. Thank you. That is as fast as we regenerate, at least.
Yeah, beautiful.
And so
beautiful.
If we're only able to halt aging, then we would probably also create a subset of therapeutics around it that help upregulate regeneration to get people ahead of that. But we're definitely hoping that some of these gene therapies work as they do in human cells and in animal models, and upregulate gene regulation enough to create regeneration and reverse the effects of biological aging, even in a much older group of people.
Yeah, wow, beautiful. So I guess part of our job would be then to try to get as many people as we can to take these therapies to drive the price down, right? At one time, so drive the price down.
So this
That's
is
the point of
where,
Yeah, I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, this is where we're looking at, minimal to just running profits in order to push the data and get as many people involved in taking the therapies as possible, so that we can get the data. And of course, having that first therapy does not disclude you from getting the vaccine in the future. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll have to get on that. And also that's what RADFest is for too, to get that moving. So, well, great. Thank you so much for taking the time. And you look beautiful, like we said. I guess you can't, yeah. And you have very good lighting, so don't worry about it. And your sound came through really good. So I think this is also going to be, this will also be a great copy for you to have, that you've been wanting. So we'll send it to you as soon as they get it ready.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I think everyone here should be really excited about the future.
We are.
And I just really need you to get involved.
Yeah, we love you, Liz. Thank you.
Love you too.